The 1960s were a golden era of automotive design, a time when legends like Lamborghini Miura and Ferrari 250 GTO were born. But in the shadow of these icons, far more radical, experimental, and today almost completely forgotten machines were taking shape. Visionaries, small manufacturers, and independent design houses were pushing the boundaries of what a supercar could be, often decades ahead of their time. Cars like the Strip Star, Quad Al, Marcos Mantis XP, and OSI Silver Fox didn't just shock with their looks. They introduced technical ideas that were simply too futuristic for mass production. In this video, we'll take a closer look at these forgotten creations, machines that had the potential to change automotive history, yet instead became its most fascinating what-if stories. The story of the Marcos Mantis XP begins like a classic underdog tale, but quickly turns into something far stranger. Imagine a futuristic race car built from plywood, powered by a Formula One engine, and designed to challenge giants like Ford and Ferrari at Le Mans. It sounds like fantasy, yet in 1968, this wild vision became reality. The Mantis XP was bold, radical, and completely uncompromising. It promised extreme speed, cutting-edge aerodynamics, and revolutionary construction. But instead of glory, it found misfortune, mechanical failure, and missed opportunities. Today, it stands as one of the most fascinating what-if machines in motorsport history. A car that dared to dream big, but never got the chance to prove itself on the world stage. The origins of the Mantis XP trace back to the small British company Marcos Engineering, founded by Jem Marsh and Frank Costin. Known for unconventional engineering, including wooden chassis designs, Marcos had already built a reputation in racing circles. By the late 1960s, the team wanted something bigger, an ambitious prototype, built specifically for Group 6 racing and the legendary 24 Hours of Le Mans. The project was entrusted to designer Dennis Adams, who created a car unlike anything else on the grid. It combined radical styling with advanced engineering, aiming to compete against the best endurance racers of its era, while showcasing Marcos's unique approach to construction. At the heart of the Mantis, XP was an extraordinary chassis. Instead of conventional steel or aluminum, Marcos used a plywood monocoque, an idea they had successfully applied in earlier models. This wooden central structure was combined with steel subframes at the front and rear. While unconventional, the design offered excellent rigidity and low weight. The entire car reportedly weighed around 650 kilograms, making it incredibly light for a race car of its size. This low mass, combined with its sleek aerodynamic body, suggested that the Mantis XP could achieve extremely high speeds, potentially even approaching 320 kilometers per hour under ideal conditions. Powering the Mantis XP was initially a 3-liter Repco Brabham V8 engine, derived from Formula One technology. This engine produced around 300 horsepower and was paired with advanced independent suspension components sourced from contemporary Formula One machinery. Later, the car was fitted with a Buick V8, and in modern recreations, even a Ford 4.7-liter V8 has been used. Regardless of configuration, the Mantis XP always promised strong performance thanks to its lightweight construction. The engine was mounted in a mid-engine layout, optimizing balance and handling, essential for endurance racing. The design of the Mantis XP was as dramatic as its engineering. Its ultra-low body featured sharp, angular lines and a long nose designed to reduce aerodynamic drag on long straights like those at Le Mans. One of its most striking features was the extensive use of transparent materials. The doors, engine cover, and even parts of the roof were made from perspex, giving the car a futuristic, almost spaceship-like appearance. Large air intakes fed side-mounted radiators, while dual fuel tanks ensured sufficient range for endurance racing. The entire car looked decades ahead of its time. Despite its promise, the Mantis XP's racing career was incredibly short and troubled. Its only competitive appearance came at the 1968 1,000 kilometers of Spa-Francorchamps. The conditions were disastrous, with torrential rain exposing critical flaws in the car's design. Water poured into the cockpit through poorly sealed doors, forcing the team to drill holes in the floor to drain it. Electrical systems suffered as well, with the alternator failing due to water exposure. After just a handful of laps, the team was forced to retire the car to avoid further damage. It was a disappointing debut for such an ambitious project. The ultimate goal for the Mantis XP was the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1968. However, fate intervened. The race was postponed due to political unrest and student protests in France. For Marcos, a small company already struggling financially, the delay was devastating. They could not afford to wait months to compete. As a result, the Mantis XP never made it to Le Mans, the very race it was built for. This missed opportunity effectively ended its career as a competitive race car before it truly began. Following its brief racing life, the Mantis XP took an unusual turn. The original F1-derived engine was removed and replaced with a more practical V8, and the car was adapted for road use. At one point, Jem Marsh even drove it on public roads, turning heads wherever it went. However, financial and legal issues forced Marcos to sell the car, and it was eventually shipped to the United States. Over the years, it changed hands several times before being acquired by the Morris family, who would become its long-term custodians. In total, only one example of the Marcos Mantis XP was ever built, making it a true one-off prototype. Because it was a racing project rather than a production car, it never had an official retail price. However, its development costs were significant for a small company like Marcos. Today, the car is considered priceless in many ways due to its uniqueness and historical significance. If it were to be sold, experts estimate it could fetch several $1,000,000, especially given its rarity and fascinating backstory. In the modern era, the Mantis XP has been lovingly restored and brought back to life. The Morris family undertook a full restoration, returning the car to its original 1968 Spa specification. It has since appeared at prestigious events, such as the Goodwood Festival of Speed and Prescott Hill Climb. Sadek, it continues to captivate audiences. Despite its lack of racing success, it has become a celebrated icon of automotive creativity, representing a time when small teams dared to challenge the giants with bold ideas. Ultimately, the Marcos Mantis XP is a story of ambition, innovation, and missed opportunity. It may have failed to achieve racing glory, but it succeeded in becoming something arguably more important, a legend. Its radical design, experimental engineering, and dramatic history ensure that it will never be forgotten. The Mantis XP reminds us that in motorsport, success is not always measured in victories. Sometimes, it's about the courage to build something extraordinary, even if the world never sees it reach its full potential. The late 1960s were a fascinating time for high-performance cars. Manufacturers around the world were trying to build machines capable of challenging the new generation of mid-engine supercars. One car in particular changed the landscape completely: the Lamborghini Miura. Its radical layout and breathtaking performance forced engineers and designers everywhere to rethink what a supercar could be. Among those inspired to create a rival was a young designer named David Gittins. His ambitious project would become the Ikenga GT, a futuristic grand touring machine with a powerful V8 engine and a design inspired by African art. Although only a single prototype was ever built, the story of the Ikenga GT remains one of the most unusual and fascinating chapters in automotive history. David Gittins was not a typical automotive engineer. Born in Brooklyn, New York, he first built a career as a photographer and worked for the automotive magazine Car and Driver during the late 1950s and early 1960s. In 1964, he moved to London, where he continued working in advertising and fashion photography. However, his interests soon expanded beyond photography. Gittins began sketching bold vehicle concepts and exploring transportation design. He envisioned a new generation of innovative vehicles, including small city cars and experimental multi-wheel machines. Among these ideas was a high-performance grand touring car with a mid-engine layout. In 1967, he finally began developing this idea into a real vehicle, which would later become known as the Ikenga GT. To turn his vision into reality, Gittins needed partners and technical resources. He purchased a racing chassis from the McLaren M1B, a powerful machine used in the famous Can-Am racing series. The chassis provided a strong tubular steel structure and was designed to handle significant power. Gittins also worked with Ken Shepard of Customized Sports Car Company and with coach building specialists from Williams and Pritchard, who helped shape the aluminum body panels. This collaboration allowed the small project to take advantage of genuine racing technology. Using a proven racing chassis meant the Ikenga GT could achieve performance levels comparable to many established sports cars of the era, despite being developed by a small independent team. The name Ikenga carried deep cultural meaning. It comes from the Igbo culture of Nigeria, where Ikenga represents achievement, strength, and personal success. Gittins, who had Nigerian heritage, wanted his car to reflect these values. The design of the body was deliberately symbolic. When viewed from above, the car was shaped to resemble a traditional African mask looking upward toward the sky. The front wheel arches represented horns, the cockpit canopy formed the crown, the roof intake symbolized the nose, and the rear section formed the mouth. This artistic concept made the Ikenga GT visually unlike any other sports car of the 1960s. It was not just a machine, but also a sculptural expression of cultural identity. Technically, the Ikenga GT was an impressive performance car. It used a mid-engine layout with rear-wheel drive, a configuration that was becoming increasingly popular among high-performance vehicles of the time. Early development versions used different engines, but later references indicate that the car was powered by a Chevrolet overhead valve V8 engine, producing approximately 325 horsepower. The engine was paired with a 5-speed manual ZF transaxle. This combination provided strong performance while maintaining reliability. With its racing-derived chassis and powerful V8 engine, the Ikenga GT had the potential to compete with many well-known sports cars of its era. The performance figures of the Ikenga GT were impressive, especially considering its relatively low weight. The car weighed around 816 kilograms, giving it an excellent power-to-weight ratio. Acceleration from 0 to 60 miles per hour was estimated at about 5 seconds. The standing quarter mile could be completed in roughly 12.5 seconds. Top speed was estimated at approximately 260 kilometers per hour, or 162 miles per hour. For a prototype built by a small independent team, these figures were remarkable and placed the car firmly in the realm of serious high-performance machines. During its development, the Ikenga GT evolved through 3 major design stages, known as Mark I, Mark II, and Mark III. Each iteration introduced updates to the body design, interior features, and technical components. The second version included a luxurious interior with leather upholstery and even a custom luggage set produced by the famous Italian fashion brand, Gucci. The final design stage proposed even more futuristic features. These included collision warning technology, ultrasonic sensors for parking assistance, and a camera system designed to help the driver maneuver the car more easily. Such ideas were extremely advanced for the late 1960s and would only become common in production vehicles decades later. Gittins hoped to produce the Ikenga GT in a limited series. His original plan was to build between 100 and 150 cars. Each vehicle was expected to cost around £9,000, which was a significant amount of money at the time. This price placed the Ikenga in the same category as many luxury sports cars of the era. However, the combination of high price and limited production capacity made it difficult to attract enough buyers. Without a major manufacturer backing the project, the ambitious production plan struggled to gain momentum. The project ultimately came to an abrupt end in 1969. The death of Charles Williams, whose company was responsible for producing the bodywork, halted further development. Financial problems soon followed, and the single completed prototype was seized by creditors. As a result, only one Ikenga GT was ever built, believed to be the Mark II prototype. For some time, the car was displayed at the Manx Motor Museum before eventually being sold to private collectors. Over the years, the unique prototype changed hands several times. In 1998, the Ikenga GT was sold at auction, and about 10 years later, it was purchased by a collector in the Middle East. Because it is a one-of-a-kind prototype, determining its exact market value is difficult. However, unique experimental sports cars from the 1960s can be worth several $1 million today. The Ikenga GT remains a fascinating example of what can happen when artistic vision meets engineering ambition. Although it never reached production, it stands as a reminder that some of the most remarkable cars in history were created not by large corporations, but by passionate individuals with bold ideas. Imagine a car that looks more like a glass spaceship than a traditional sports car. Huge transparent doors, a panoramic roof, and a futuristic silhouette. This is exactly how the world first saw the Lamborghini Marzal. Unveiled in 1967, this extraordinary concept immediately became one of the most talked about cars of its era. Even though it never entered production, its bold design and unique engineering made it one of the most iconic concept cars in automotive history. The idea behind the Marzal came from Ferruccio Lamborghini, who wanted to expand his brand beyond 2-seat sports cars. His goal was to create a 4-seater Grand Tourer that would combine performance with comfort. To achieve this, Lamborghini partnered with Carrozzeria Bertone, where the project was led by the young and visionary designer Marcello Gondini. The Marzal made its official debut at the Geneva Motor Show 1967, where it stunned audiences with its radical styling. Shortly afterward, it gained worldwide fame during the Grand Prix Monaco 1967. During the event, Rainier III and Grace Kelly took the car for a ceremonial lap, instantly turning it into a legend. From a design perspective, the Marzal was revolutionary. Its most striking feature was the massive gull-wing doors made almost entirely of glass, offering a panoramic view of the surroundings. The glass roof enhanced this effect, creating a bright, open cabin unlike anything seen before. The car's low, elongated body and sharp, angular lines gave it a futuristic look that stood in stark contrast to the rounded designs typical of the 1960s. The interior was just as futuristic as the exterior. A hexagonal theme dominated the entire cabin, from the dashboard to the steering wheel and even the seats. The upholstery was finished in silver leather, reinforcing the car's futuristic identity. Unlike most sports cars of its time, the Marzal offered a 2+2 seating layout, providing space for 4 passengers and even a relatively large luggage compartment. Under the hood, the Marzal featured a unique powertrain. It was equipped with a 2-liter inline-6 engine derived from the V12 used in the Lamborghini Miura, essentially half of that engine. Producing around 175 horsepower, it was paired with a 5-speed manual transmission and sent power to the rear wheels. The top speed was estimated at around 190 kilometers per hour, although some sources suggested a theoretical maximum closer to 225 kilometers per hour. The car was built on an extended Miura chassis with a wheelbase of approximately 2,600 millimeters. Its structure combined a steel frame with aluminum body panels, keeping the weight relatively low at around 1,200 kilograms. The Marzal featured independent suspension and disc brakes on all 4 wheels, making it quite advanced for a concept car of its time. Despite the excitement it generated, Lamborghini ultimately decided not to put the Marzal into production. The design was considered too radical and expensive to manufacture. As a result, only a single example was ever built, making it one of the rarest Lamborghini vehicles ever created. However, its influence lived on, particularly in the design of the Lamborghini Espada, which followed shortly after. Because it was a one-off concept, the Marzal never had an official retail price. Decades later, its value was determined by collectors. In 2011, the car was sold at auction for approximately €1.5 million, confirming its status as a highly valuable piece of automotive history. Today, its price could be even higher due to its uniqueness and cultural significance. Today, the Lamborghini Marzal stands as a symbol of bold creativity and futuristic thinking. Although it never became a production model, it left a lasting mark on automotive design and Lamborghini's legacy. It proves that even a single concept car can shape the future, and sometimes the most daring ideas are the ones that are remembered forever. Automotive history is full of fascinating machines that could have changed racing forever, but never truly got the chance. One of the most unusual examples is the OSI Silver Fox, an experimental racing prototype unveiled in 1967. At first glance, it looked less like a traditional race car and more like something from the world of aviation. Its unusual twin-body layout and radical aerodynamic concept made it stand out even among the most innovative race cars of the 1960s. While most manufacturers focused on building ever more powerful engines, the engineers behind the Silver Fox believed that lightweight, clever balance, and advanced aerodynamics could achieve the same result. The project was created with 2 ambitious goals: to break speed records in its engine class and to compete in the legendary 24 Hours of Le Mans. Unfortunately, financial problems soon ended the project, and the remarkable prototype never had the chance to prove its true potential on the track. The Silver Fox was developed by the Italian company Officina Stampaggio Industriale, better known as OSI. The firm was founded in 1960 by former employees of the famous design studio Ghia. At first, the company focused on designing and building special bodywork for existing car platforms supplied by other manufacturers. During the early years, OSI created vehicles based on models from Alfa Romeo, Fiat, and Ford. The company quickly earned a reputation for bold ideas and creative engineering. However, by the late 1960s, the team wanted to go further and develop a racing machine of their own. The goal was not simply to build another race car, but to explore new aerodynamic solutions that could challenge more powerful competitors. This ambition ultimately led to the creation of one of the most unusual prototypes of its era. The most distinctive feature of the OSI Silver Fox was its twin-pod design, which resembled a catamaran. Instead of a traditional single body, the car consisted of 2 separate pontoons connected in the center. One housed the driver, while the other contained the engine and drivetrain components. This unusual configuration allowed the designers to distribute weight in a very balanced way, while also improving airflow around the vehicle. Between the 2 pods was an open space where aerodynamic elements were mounted. The entire structure was reinforced by a tubular steel framework and covered with a sleek, streamlined body. The design was unlike anything else seen on a racing circuit at the time, and it immediately captured attention when the car was revealed to the public. Technically, the Silver Fox was just as intriguing as it looked. The car was powered by a small 1-liter 4-cylinder engine supplied by Renault and tuned by Alpine. Despite its modest displacement, the engine was chosen for its reliability and efficiency rather than raw power. It produced approximately 59 horsepower and drove the rear wheels. The engine was mounted behind the driver inside one of the side pods, creating a very unconventional layout. While the power output seemed small compared with the large engines used by many racing cars of the period, the designers believed that the Silver Fox could compensate with superior aerodynamics and very low weight. Their philosophy was simple. Less mass and less drag could allow a small engine to deliver impressive performance. One of the most advanced features of the Silver Fox was its aerodynamic system. The car was equipped with 3 separate wings designed to generate adjustable downforce. The front wing could be set only while the car was stationary, allowing engineers to tailor the setup before a race. The middle wing, however, could be adjusted by the driver while driving, making it possible to change the aerodynamic balance depending on track conditions. This concept was extremely innovative for the 1960s and resembles modern systems used in motorsport today. In some ways, it was an early precursor to technologies that allow drivers to reduce drag on straights or increase downforce in corners. The engineers behind the Silver Fox clearly understood the importance of aerodynamics long before it became a central focus in racing design. According to the designers, the Silver Fox was capable of reaching a theoretical top speed of around 250 kilometers per hour. For a car powered by a 1-liter engine, this was an extraordinary claim. Some sources suggested that the actual achievable speed might have been lower, perhaps closer to around 160 to 170 kilometers per hour. Even so, the concept demonstrated how efficient aerodynamics could dramatically improve performance. The designers also believed the car would consume less fuel than larger prototypes, which could be a major advantage in endurance racing. Fewer pit stops during a long event like the 24 Hours of Le Mans could significantly improve a team's average speed over the entire race distance. The Silver Fox made its official debut at the Turin Motor Show in 1967. Visitors were immediately drawn to its futuristic shape and unconventional layout. The prototype was intended to compete in the small displacement prototype class at Le Mans, where it could challenge larger and more powerful cars through efficiency and aerodynamics. Unfortunately, the ambitious project soon encountered serious obstacles. By the end of 1967, OSI was facing severe financial difficulties. Within months, the company was absorbed by the Fiat Group, and development of the Silver Fox came to an abrupt end. As a result, the car never reached the starting grid of the famous endurance race it had been designed for. Because of the company's collapse, the Silver Fox never entered production. Only a single prototype was ever built, making it one of the rarest racing cars in history. Even more interesting is the fact that the vehicle was never fully tested under proper racing conditions. Its real performance therefore remains something of a mystery. Enthusiasts and historians can only speculate about how fast it might have been on a real circuit. This unfinished story is part of what makes the Silver Fox so fascinating today. It represents a bold idea that never had the chance to fully prove itself. Decades later, the unique prototype was acquired by French collector and racing driver Paul-Émile Bassad. When he obtained the car, it was only a rolling chassis without its original engine, though many original design drawings had survived. Using these documents, Bassad began a long and careful restoration process. Rebuilding such a rare and unusual machine was extremely challenging, but after about 10 years of work, the Silver Fox was finally restored to running condition. Today, the car occasionally appears at classic racing events and historic car shows, where it continues to captivate audiences with its unusual appearance and remarkable story. Since only one Silver Fox was ever built, the car never had an official market price when new. Determining its current value is also difficult, because unique prototypes rarely appear on the open market. However, in the world of classic and collectible automobiles, one-off racing prototypes from the 1960s can be worth several $1 million. The Silver Fox's rarity, innovative design, and dramatic history make it especially desirable among collectors and historians. Today, the car stands as a symbol of creativity and daring engineering, reminding us that some of the most interesting machines in automotive history were not the ones that won races, but the ones that dared to try something completely different. Can you imagine a Porsche 911 that doesn't look like a Porsche 911 at all? In the mid-1960s, a car appeared that still surprises fans of the brand today. Known as the Porsche 911 Roadster by Bertone, it was a unique experiment combining German engineering with Italian design. The project was initiated by American Porsche importer John von Neumann, who dreamed of creating an open-top version of the new 911. Before the factory had time to develop its own convertible model, he decided to build one himself. To do so, he turned to the famous Italian design house Bertone, led by the legendary Nuccio Bertone. The result became one of the most unusual prototypes in Porsche history. In the early 1960s, Porsche was going through an important transition. Production of the Porsche 356 was coming to an end, while the completely new Porsche 911 was entering the market. The problem was that when the 356 disappeared, so did its popular open-top versions, such as the Speedster and Cabriolet. American customers, especially in California, loved driving sporty convertibles. Von Neumann believed the new 911 should also have an open version as soon as possible. Porsche was already working on the Porsche 911 Targa, but its distinctive roll bar and removable roof panel did not convince everyone. Von Neumann therefore decided to create a true roadster based on the new 911. To realize his idea, von Neumann acquired a bare 911 chassis directly from Porsche. He then contacted Bertone and asked the Italian designers to create a completely new body for the car. Their task was to design a vehicle aimed mainly at American customers. However, they had no intention of copying the styling of the German coupe. Instead, they created an entirely new body shape that was much more Italian in character. The project was completed in just a few months so that it could debut at the prestigious Geneva Motor Show in 1966. The result was an elegant roadster with very clean lines and proportions more reminiscent of Italian sports cars than a traditional Porsche. Stylistically, the car barely resembled the standard 911. In fact, many observers would never have guessed that a German chassis was hiding beneath the body. The Bertone designers even managed to disguise the fact that the engine was mounted at the rear. The only clue was a pair of small air intakes located on the sides of the body. The front of the car featured hidden pop-up headlights, which were extremely fashionable at the time. The interior also differed significantly from that of a standard Porsche. Instead of the typical instrument cluster placed in front of the driver, the gauges were arranged vertically in the center console. The cockpit was completed with specially designed leather seats and elegant interior trim. Technically, the car was based on the standard mid-1960s Porsche 911 platform. Under the rear deck lid was an air-cooled 2-liter flat-six engine. This unit, known as Type 901, produced around 130 horsepower at 6,100 revolutions per minute. The engine used a single overhead camshaft for each cylinder bank and 2 Solex carburetors. Power was sent to the rear wheels through a 5-speed manual gearbox known as the Type 901 transmission. In later years, the prototype received a more powerful engine from the 911S, which increased output to about 160 horsepower. The car was relatively light for its time. According to figures provided by Bertone, the Roadster weighed around 1,050 kilograms. This allowed it to deliver respectable performance. The top speed was estimated at about 220 kilometers per hour. While it was not the fastest sports car of the era, its main appeal was the combination of stylish open-top motoring and Porsche's distinctive flat-six engine. The car was fully functional, although due to the limited time before its debut, the designers did not manage to develop a complete folding soft-top roof. The prototype was unveiled to the public in 1966 at the Geneva Motor Show. The car attracted considerable attention from visitors and was praised for its elegant design. However, the reaction from Porsche management was far more reserved. The company already had its own plans for the 911 Targa and was not convinced about putting a car with completely different styling into production. In addition, the project would have required reinforcing the chassis and further investment. As a result, the idea of production was ultimately abandoned. Price was another significant issue. The production version of the Roadster was estimated to cost around $8,000, which was a very high amount in the second half of the 1960s. By comparison, the newly introduced 911 Targa cost about $6,000 in the United States. That represented a difference of nearly 30%. Even wealthy Porsche customers found it difficult to justify paying so much more for a car with an uncertain future. As a result, no orders were placed, and the project ended at the prototype stage. In total, only a single example of the Bertone-designed Porsche 911 was ever built. The car remained the property of John von Neumann, who after the Geneva show first took it to his residence in Switzerland and later shipped it to California. Over the following years, the car changed owners several times. During one restoration, it received the more powerful 911S engine and new wheels. The unique Roadster occasionally appeared at exhibitions and in private collections, allowing its unusual story to survive. Today, the one-off Porsche 911 Bertone is considered one of the most fascinating prototypes in the brand's history. Because of its uniqueness and intriguing background, it commands extremely high prices at auctions. In 2018, the car was sold for about $1.4 million. Earlier estimates had valued it between $700,000 and $1 million. Today its price could be even higher, as collectors increasingly appreciate rare projects that combine different design philosophies. The Porsche 911 Bertone therefore remains a remarkable symbol of the meeting between Italian stylistic imagination and German engineering. In the 1960s, the United States produced some of the most futuristic cars ever imagined. One of the most extraordinary creations of that era was the Strip Star, a radical show car that blended the worlds of hot rods, drag racing machines, and concept cars. Its appearance alone looked like something from science fiction. An ultra-low body, asymmetrical styling, and experimental technology rarely seen on road cars of the time. The project was created in California by legendary custom car builder Gene Winfield. The car was commissioned by hot rod promoter and collector Bob Larrivee Sr., and who wanted a spectacular machine to headline his traveling show car exhibitions across the United States and Canada. The story of the Strip Star began in the early 1960s, a period when American car culture was dominated by creativity and experimentation. Custom car builders were constantly trying to push the limits of design and engineering. Bob Larrivee Sr., who organized famous car exhibitions such as the Detroit Autorama, wanted a completely unique vehicle that could amaze audiences. To achieve this, he turned to Gene Winfield, whose workshop in Modesto, California, had already built numerous innovative custom vehicles. Winfield was known for bold styling and futuristic ideas, making him the perfect person to bring Larrivee's vision to life. The goal was clear: create a car that would be both a showpiece and a high-performance experimental machine. One of the most striking features of the Strip Star was its unusual asymmetrical design. The body was hand-formed from aluminum and deliberately built with an off-center layout. The front end featured a grille and headlights that were positioned asymmetrically relative to the center line of the car. One headlight came from a Honda unit, while the other used French driving lights. Such design choices were extremely unusual and gave the car a dramatic and experimental appearance. The sleek fastback body began above the driver's cockpit and smoothly flowed toward the rear of the car, where a drag racing parachute was integrated into the design for braking at very high speeds. The car was built on a heavily modified Ford 1948 chassis, with a wheelbase of approximately 107 inches. The chassis was reworked to accommodate the extremely low and aerodynamic body shape. Underneath the car, a full belly pan covered the underside, improving airflow and reducing aerodynamic drag. This solution was commonly used in racing vehicles designed for high-speed runs. As a result, the Strip Star was not only visually impressive, but also engineered with serious performance ambitions in mind. Power came from a massive Ford 427 V8 engine with a displacement of 427 cubic inches, or nearly 7 liters. In full racing specification, the engine produced between about 500 horsepower, an enormous figure for the early 1960s. The engine was paired with a 4-speed Ford manual transmission connected to a rear axle from the 1948 Ford platform. The entire car weighed about 2,300 pounds, slightly over 1,000 kilograms. With such a powerful engine and relatively low weight, the Strip Star had the potential to achieve extremely high speeds. Early testing of the car took place at the famous Bonneville Salt Flats, a legendary location for speed record attempts. During preliminary runs, the Strip Star reached approximately 204 kilometers per hour. However, the builders had hoped for much more. Their ultimate goal was to exceed 320 kilometers per hour, but the attempt was halted due to a transmission failure. Despite this setback, the test demonstrated the impressive potential of the car's design. To safely slow the vehicle at high speeds, the Strip Star was equipped with a drag parachute similar to those used on professional drag racing machines. The interior of the car was designed in the distinctive style of 1960s show vehicles. The cockpit featured black Naugahyde upholstery, black carpeting, and lightweight fiberglass bucket seats padded with foam. One of the most unusual elements inside the cabin was the steering wheel, which was made from aluminum and bent at a 90-degree angle. Even more futuristic was the car's remote control system. Using this system, operators could start the engine, raise or lower the roof, and even control the passenger windshield. In the early 1960s, such technology seemed almost futuristic. The exterior appearance of the Strip Star was equally impressive. The body was finished in a bright candy tangerine paint, applied in an incredible 40 layers over a pearl base. This technique created a deep, glossy effect that made the car stand out under show lights. The vehicle rode on Goodyear Supersport tires, mounted on Terra thrust wheels, designed and manufactured by Gene Winfield himself. Every element of the design was intended to attract attention and create a dramatic visual impact at car exhibitions. Only a single example of the Strip Star was ever built, making it a true one-off creation. For about 3 years, the car served as a star attraction in Bob Larave's show car exhibitions across the United States and Canada. It appeared at numerous automotive events, where its radical styling fascinated audiences. Decades later, the car even gained a moment of cinematic fame when it appeared as a futuristic vehicle in the movie Back to the Future Part 2, which depicted a vision of the year 2015. Today, the Strip Star remains one of the most unusual vehicles in the history of American custom car culture. Because only one example exists, determining its exact market value is difficult. However, rare show cars from the 1960s often sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars at auctions. Beyond its potential value, the Strip Star represents something even more important: the creativity and imagination of an era when custom car builders were willing to experiment with bold designs and futuristic ideas that still captivate automotive enthusiasts today. Can you imagine a car powered by 4 aircraft engines designed to dominate the quarter mile? It sounds like pure madness, yet that's exactly what the Quad Al was. Built in the 1960s in the United States, this outrageous machine earned a place in the Guinness World Records as the most powerful piston engine car ever created. Despite never actually running under its own power, Quad Al became one of the most legendary and extreme automotive projects of all time. It represents an era when builders pushed engineering to its absolute limits, often going far beyond what was practical or even possible. The story begins with Jim Lytle, a drag racing innovator known for creating wild machines powered by aircraft engines. During the early 1960s, Lytle was already experimenting with high-powered dragsters when a friend showed him a sketch of a car featuring 4 engines mounted side by side. Instead of dismissing the idea as impossible, Lytle embraced it. At the time, surplus aircraft engines from World War II were surprisingly cheap, making the concept financially feasible, at least in theory. What started as a bold idea quickly turned into one of the most ambitious drag racing projects ever attempted. To bring his vision to life, Lytle acquired 4 Allison V12 engines, originally used in War World II fighter planes. Each engine had a displacement of around 28 liters and produced roughly 3,000 horsepower in stock form. Combined, they were expected to deliver an astonishing 12,000 horsepower and around 1,000 pound-foot of torque. These numbers were almost unimaginable for a car in the 1960s, and even today, they remain extraordinary. The Quad Al was not just powerful, it was on an entirely different level compared to anything else on wheels. The chassis of the car was based on a heavily modified Fiat Topolino, a tiny Italian city car that served as the unlikely foundation for this monstrous build. The contrast between the original vehicle and the final creation could not have been more extreme. The car featured an 8-wheel layout and was designed with the idea of potentially driving all wheels. Various companies supported the project. Cal Automotive provided a fiberglass body, Moon supplied fuel tanks, and Champion contributed specialized racing components. The result was a machine that looked as wild as it sounded. One of the most insane aspects of the Quad Al was its exhaust system. With 4 massive V12 engines, the car featured a total of 96 exhaust pipes. Just imagining the sound of all 4 engines running simultaneously gives an idea of how dramatic this machine would have been. The car was intended for drag racing, where its extreme power could theoretically deliver unbelievable acceleration over a short distance. Lytle's goal was simple: build the ultimate quarter-mile monster. However, the biggest challenge was not the engines, it was everything else. Transmitting such enormous power to the wheels required completely custom-built gearboxes and clutch systems. Lytle discovered that these components would cost around $5,000, an enormous amount at the time. Considering he earned only about $110 per week, the cost was simply impossible to cover. Ironically, the engines, the most extreme part of the build, were the easiest and cheapest components to acquire. By the time the project stalled, Lytle had invested around $2,000 into the build, largely thanks to sponsor support. With no way to complete the drivetrain, the Quad Al remained unfinished. In 1965, Lytle made the difficult decision to sell the car along with its custom trailer for about $4,000. The buyer, stuntman Tex Collins, intended to finish the project, but his untimely death brought those plans to an end as well. Over the following decades, the Quad Al changed hands multiple times. Along the way, its original Allison engines were removed and sold separately, leaving the car incomplete. Eventually, it was acquired by collector Mike Guffey, who undertook a restoration project. Due to the extremely high cost, By then, a single Allison engine could cost around $3,000. He chose to install mock engines instead of real ones. The car was restored mainly as a showpiece rather than a functional vehicle. Today, the Quad-Al is considered one of the most outrageous machines ever built. It is often described as the wildest dragster that never ran, a title that perfectly captures its legacy. Even though it never completed a single run under its own power, its concept and specifications continue to fascinate automotive enthusiasts around the world. It stands as a reminder of just how far imagination can go when limits are ignored. Estimating the value of the Quad-Al today is difficult due to its one-of-a-kind status. Unique custom cars from the 1960s can easily reach hundreds of thousands of dollars, and a project with such a legendary story could be worth even more. However, its true value goes beyond money. The Quad-Al represents a time when builders dared to dream big, sometimes too big, and created machines that still capture the imagination decades later. It remains one of the most extreme what-if stories in automotive history. Imagine a classic, elegant Maserati 3500 GT, and then transform it into something completely unique, rebodied by a small Italian company no one expected. That's exactly how the Maserati 3500 GT Moretti was born, one of the most mysterious and underrated one-off creations in automotive history. This isn't just a collector's car. It's a story of ambition, creativity, and bold decisions that turned a damaged Grand Tourer into a rolling piece of art. To understand this car, we need to go back to the late 1950s, when Maserati was undergoing a major transformation. Known primarily for racing success, including Formula One, the brand began focusing on road cars to secure its financial future. The Maserati 3500 GT, introduced in 1957 at the Geneva Motor Show, became the company's first true series production Grand Tourer. With over 2,200 units built, it marked a turning point, establishing Maserati as a serious player in the luxury GT market. The standard 3500 GT featured elegant coachwork by Carrozzeria Touring, built using the lightweight Superleggera construction method. Under the hood was a 3.5-liter inline-six engine, derived from Maserati's racing cars, producing around 230 horsepower. Paired with a manual transmission, the car offered an excellent balance of performance and comfort, making it a perfect Grand Tourer for long-distance driving. The story of the Moretti version begins with a specific chassis, number 1858. Delivered new in 1962 to Copenhagen as a standard touring-bodied coupe, the car lived a normal life until a serious accident in 1965. Instead of restoring it to factory condition, the owner made a bold decision: send it to Moretti for a complete transformation. Moretti, a company better known for small cars and Fiat-based projects, took on this unusual challenge. The result was unveiled at the 1966 Geneva Motor Show, a completely redesigned 2+2 coupe with a sleek, elongated body. Featuring a long hood and a fastback rear, the design echoed cars like the Iso Grifo while maintaining its own unique identity. Technically, the Maserati 3500 GT Moretti retained much of its original engineering, but also benefited from improvements. The 3.5-liter engine in later versions produced around 235 horsepower, thanks to Lucas mechanical fuel injection, an advanced feature at the time, and a first for Italian production cars. Power was sent to the rear wheels through a 5-speed manual gearbox, delivering smooth and engaging performance. The car didn't just impress with performance, it also offered a luxurious interior. Originally finished in red leather and later reupholstered in white, the cabin provided comfortable seating for 4 passengers. Features like a radio, seatbelts, and adjustable seating made it a refined and modern machine for its era. What truly sets this car apart is its rarity. Only one example of the Maserati 3500 GT Moretti was ever built. In an era when mass production was becoming the norm, such bespoke creations were already fading away. This makes the car not only rare, but also historically significant. After its debut in Geneva, the car disappeared from public view for many years. It resurfaced in the 1980s in Germany, later being acquired by a Maserati collector in 2000 and brought to the United States. There, it underwent careful refurbishment and regained its former glory, becoming a prized collector's item once again. Its value story is just as fascinating. In 2003, the car was sold for only $29,700, a surprisingly low figure considering its uniqueness. By 2014, its estimated value had risen dramatically to between $500,000 and $600,000, and it was sold before even reaching auction. Today, experts believe it could easily be worth over $1 million. The Maserati 3500 GT Moretti is more than just a car. It's a story of reinvention. From a crashed vehicle to a one-of-a-kind masterpiece, it proves that in the world of automotive design, bold ideas and passion can create something truly timeless. Looking back at these extraordinary machines today, it's hard not to feel that the 1960s were a time of absolute creative freedom in automotive design. Designers weren't afraid to take risks, break conventions, and experiment with form and technology, even if it meant creating cars that would never reach production. Models like the Ikenga GT, Porsche 911 Bertone, and Lamborghini Marzal showed just how thin the line between art and engineering really was. It was through projects like these that advancements in aerodynamics, materials, and drivetrain concepts were made. Even though most of these cars were built as one-offs, their influence on the future of automotive design was far greater than it might seem. Today, these cars are almost forgotten, hidden away in private collections or museums, but their stories continue to inspire and fascinate. The Maserati 3500 GT Moretti, OSI Silver Fox, and Marcos Mantis XP prove that not only famous models and major brands shape the history of supercars. Sometimes, it's these obscure and overlooked projects that best capture the bold and unpredictable spirit of automotive innovation. They may not have achieved commercial success, but they left behind something far more valuable, a vision of the future that only decades later began to become reality. And that's exactly why they deserve to be remembered, because without these forgotten supercars, the automotive world would look very different today.